This podcast was recorded on the ancestral lands on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation.
This is Humans on Rights, a podcast advocating for the education of human rights. Here's your host, Stuart Murray.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to go to your recycling bin and wonder, how did this get started? What's the story behind recycling in Winnipeg? What's the story about the ban on plastic bags? Well, my guest today, Don Woodstock, has written a book called Unrelenting. And he's going to share his story about Unrelenting with respect to recycling, his life journey from Jamaica to Winnipeg, and a little bit maybe about why he was so clever to put some very interesting music into his Unrelenting audiobook. But I'm delighted to welcome to Humans on Rights for this conversation, Don Woodstock. Don, welcome to Humans on Rights.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and thanks for having me.
So, Don, obviously, we're going to talk about this book, Unrelenting, but let's talk a little bit about Don Woodstock. Tell me a bit about your life journey. I mean, you've come from Jamaica, you've come to Winnipeg. What brought you to Winnipeg? And when you talk about what brought you to Winnipeg, tie in some of the things that have made you who you are as a person, that made you want to be so passionate about recycling.
Awesome. Well, I grew up on a farm in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica, because as a country boy growing up on a farm, there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years that have made me a model citizen in my view and in my grandfather's eyes. And I follow in the steps of my grandfather because I believe if there's anybody going to heaven or is in heaven, is my grandfather. He was a man of character. He was a man of great discipline. He was a man that was passionate about his beliefs. And so I have emulated a lot of that in what I do and carry on my life. Winnipeg came calling because of a job opportunity. I was with ADT at the time doing door-to-door sales across Canada, and I was invited to come here on a visit, and I came here on a visit. And next thing you know, I was offered the job as the manager for the alarm outfit here in the city. And this became home away from home. I have 2 children that are born right here. So Winnipeg becomes home to me more than what most people think. And so I decided, having lived in BC, having lived in Toronto, having lived in Edmonton for a little bit, I have seen in a short space of time when I was here that this is this closest thing as I'm going to get to being in Jamaica, where I'm from, except for the weather.
I was going to say, man, I'm telling you, that's not in your book. That's not in your book, Don.
Yes. So I have long felt that the need for me to get involved here. And so for me, the way in which my grandfather's legacy left that indelible mark on my life is, to me, second to none when I look around and see all of the things that need to be done and what you have to do to get things done. And it's never going to be easy, but there's nothing in life easy. And so you bottle up. But, the question that I keep asking myself over and over and over again, Stuart, is the one question my grandfather left with me. And that one question is it bigger than you, son? So he'll give you a task to do. And the first thing he asks you is this bigger than you? Now, if you say it's bigger than you and he show you how it's done the first time, then the next time he's giving you a task and he asks you that question, you're going to think and go, no, let me try this. Let me think this one through. And that was interesting, a very interesting period in my life, because it forces my young mind at the time to think outside of the box. If we can get our young people to think outside of the box, priceless.
You said something here that I think it's important. I mean, we kind of joked a little bit about what you said. The Winnipeg is as closest to Jamaica without the weather. And so let's just take the weather out of it. But from a cultural standpoint, why would you say that Winnipeg is as close to your experience when you were in Jamaica? Like, just let's talk about what did that mean to you? Like, how do you make that statement?
Just outside of Winnipeg, and people who are connected to a lot of the farm community in Winnipeg, Farming is not far from us. I've met a lot of farmers in the city. I've met a lot of farmers just on the outskirts of the city, half an hour, 45 minutes. Everywhere you go in the city, you can almost meet somebody who knows somebody. Okay. So you're 1 degree away from knowing somebody who knows somebody, your neighbor. Jamaica is like that because it's a small community, a small country. You get to meet people. Unlike BC or Toronto, you're never going to know somebody next door to you who knows somebody, right? Also, the multicultural aspect of Winnipeg, which is the first of its kind in Canada, it is what Jamaica is. Jamaica's motto is out of many one people. A lot of folks think when you think of Jamaica, you see a black man in front of you because the population is predominantly black. However, we have Chinese Jamaican, we have East Indian Jamaican, Native Indian Jamaican, they're called Arawak Indians. We have and that's why the motto of Jamaica, out of many one people. When I came here and I saw that multicultural look, and I'm not saying that there's no multicultural look in Toronto or Vancouver where I've lived, but the cohesiveness of that multicultural look in Winnipeg that I felt when I came here in 1999 and still hold true today even more, I'm comfortable with it, having lived in BC and having lived in Toronto.
Yeah. That's a great explanation. I just, part of it, when you go through your book and you understand, what's driven you in terms of grassroots, in terms of leadership, and how you have taken the approach to be unrelenting in what it is your passion has been. It's interesting how you draw those comparisons because this is a podcast about you, Don, and about what you believe and what you see and how you feel. And, I think we're both proud Winnipeggers and you demonstrate that. So let's talk a little bit, Don, about, you come to Canada, you work for ADT, which is the alarm company. How do you transition from that sort of a leadership role to start getting involved in the importance of recycling, not only from your own perspective, but saying this is a grassroots organization that we've got to find a way to get more people engaged? Because I just think the numbers, Don, if I'm not mistaken, before you started your passion on your unrelenting approach, was around 33% of Winnipeggers were recycling, and now it's 99%. So talk a little bit about how you got passionate about recycling.
It started by made up my mind, my children are born, that this is home. So this is home. What is it that I need to do? And what can I do? So my grandfather asked that question from time to time. Focus on the little things that you can do today, because the little things you do today will mature into a big tree tomorrow. And so I have that in the back of my mind. And I thought, okay, what can I do to make a difference in something I truly believed in my heart? Because if you don't believe in something in your heart, then when the times get rocky, you will move away from it. You will drop it. You'll drop the agenda because it wasn't something you're passionate about in the heart. So for me, recycling was because growing up in the farm in Jamaica, the business of sustainability is something that I've lived, I've witnessed. You have to be that way because you didn't have running water. You had to catch water and wait till the rain fall to get water. So you have to know what you're doing, right? Your fields doesn't have irrigation. There's no field in Jamaica when I was growing up that have irrigation system. But we developed an irrigation system of some sort. The hottest parish in Jamaica, which is St. Elizabeth, grow the most fruits. Okay. For more fruits and vegetables in St. Elizabeth than anywhere else. And there's a reason, because most people don't know is that if you use grass or mulch to cover the ground and you plant a pea in that soil, that will grow whether or not it has water or not, because the sun creates condensation with the grass underneath, with the biodiversity, and create the nutrients for that soil. Most people are not even aware of that, right?
I'm one of those, Don. I had no idea. And by the way, I was raised on a farm in Saskatchewan, so I'm learning from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, here you go. So we had to find ways and means to do things like that. For example, we made sure that our water was pristine in the sense that nobody in the community, upstream or downstream from us, would have a pig pen close to where our water supply is or where the water runoff would be. People understood what sustainability is and taking care of things. For example, if there's a big log tree in your property and it's dying, before it's dead and tumbling and falling to the river, which would create another big problem, the neighbors would have a cook day or a work day. And the people would gather and they'll make this announcement at the church because that's where people would gather. That's their meeting place for their Facebook or Instagram or news, right? Is when you go to church, you hear what's the latest. And it says, Mass George or Brother Joe have a tree he needs to clear who is the as I was dying. So we're gonna go there on Wednesday. And anybody who can come and we make it a cook day, a family day, and we clear that tree so that when it die, it doesn't block the river flow. Because if it block the river flow, that river is gonna go into the properties now, create another problem for flooding, etc. So we understood that because it was a community that needed to stay alive. We understood all of that dynamics. And so part of me will never die where that's concerned, that part. And so for me, it's coming here and taking care of what I see people are not doing or weren't paying attention to. So I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. David Suzuki because he was in town. And the question was asked before I met him, if you were prime minister, what would you do? And so for me, I simply said, well, water is life. We have 100,000 lakes here in Manitoba. And so if we weren't to protect it before we give equalization payment to any province, we would ask them to put a plan together for the next 30, 40 years to protect the water. Needless to know that I made it to the top of the leaderboard and I have a personal meeting with Dr. David Suzuki. I go, oh my God, what's this? It was on top of the world. So then he said to me, which rings true, I felt like he was speaking to my soul. He wasn't just talking to Don Woodstock. He was talking to more than Don Woodstock. I asked him, how do you get people to listen to you? What do you do? And he says, look at me, son. 30 plus years I'm doing this and some people still don't give a damn. You start at the local level and don't stop. And then he held me by the shoulders and he says, whatever you do, don't stop. Those words were more than just words for me. So that's where I started. I said, let me create a documentary, Your World and Mine. I didn't put that in the thing. And I just went out. I just said, I'm just going to start at the local level. Just going to go, just as he said. And I marched on.
Don, I want to spend a bit of time on this because I do think that one of the elements of change, systemic change, comes through grassroots. And, that's something that you're very passionate about. You write about it in the book. You demonstrate it every time that you make a speech or you're with the public. But for some people, they look and say, well, I'd like to make a difference, but I just don't know how. How do I get started? And I think, it is easy to get knocked off your game because a lot of times you run into a roadblock or a bump on the road. And some people, as passionate as they are, they look at it and say, maybe this isn't the time. So anybody that's listening and saying, Don Woodstock, encourage me. What encouraged you? What can I learn? Teach me how I might be able to be passionate about a grassroots project that will change. Maybe, we sort of say, will it change the world? I'm not sure, but it'll make it a better world for sure.
Yes. So when I started out, I didn't start it out to change the world or to change majority of people around me or to change any great minds. What I started out doing is saying, if I could just follow with the advice my grandfather gave me, make sure that I'm planting a seed that will bear fruit in the future. I may be here, I may not be here. The biggest thing to everybody who is listening is don't go to your grave with your dreams. Whatever dream you have, whatever you're passionate about, bear in mind one thing. Sit in your room, sit in your corner, recommit this to yourself every day. not just when it's good, also when it's bad, when nobody would listen to you, when nobody would pay you any mind. Don't do it for the media attention or the social media hype. We live in a world where we need to get instant gratification. Don't. Because, and here is a theory that you can take from a farmer. You would not plant a pea or a watermelon seed and expect it to bear fruit in a day or two. So if you don't expect your pumpkin seed to bear fruit, bear another pumpkin in a day or two, and the following day you get up and you see a big fat pumpkin on that vine that you plant the seed yesterday, you would be very cynical of it and wouldn't want to eat it because you'd say something is wrong. Take that approach to your life and your dream and your vision, whatever it is. Don't expect you to be on the front page of the newspaper the next day. Don't expect you to have 5 million followers because, and that's the world we live in, unfortunately, which is fake, right? Don't expect that because real change doesn't come that way. You will have obstacles. You will have downfalls. You will have some days you have to question yourself. Take it from me. That's normal. That's you going through the process of recommitting to yourself that this is something that you really need to do because you'll be tested. Okay? The Bible tells you that yea, though you may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it doesn't mean that you're going to get all fancy street road paved in front of you to get to your dream. The Bible already tell you this. And if you read it as a historical book or as a philosophical book or as a Christian book, whatever, you'll get the same message. Also, bear something in mind. This is also in my video trailer. What if everything that you're taught as impossible is actually possible? And here's why this is important. My grandfather gave me a basket to carry water. Stuart, if I gave you a basket and says, catch me some water, would you be able to do it, Stuart? First thought tells you is no. However, my grandfather, at the tiny age of about 6 or 7 years old, gave me a basket to go down to the river to catch water in it. And I'm going, this is crazy. How is this even possible? And after hours of crying and getting wet and try how many times to use the basket to pick this water up and the water drain out before I move from my spot, and I'm soaked from head to foot, like I get a bath without knowing I'm getting a bath, Here comes my grandfather late at night. And back then in the country, people are afraid of duppy or ghosts or whatever. So you hear this thing and I'm crying. And this man comes and we have what we call badu in Jamaica, or people know it here as tara root. The tara root plant is a big leafy plant. And you take about 2 or 3 of those, cut them, put them in the basket and scoop up some water and there. And I'm thinking to myself, it was that easy. So the next time a challenge comes to you, for those of us who are listening, for young people, ask yourself this one question in the back of your mind. Is it bigger than you? That's why people see me and they see me run for politics so many times and they say, Don, by now you would have given up. I say, no. Because the one question I keep asking myself, which I will answer one day, and the answer is not. Is it bigger than you? And I'm going, no, I have to figure this out. I will figure this out. And I will.
Talk a little bit about, Don, what was your biggest challenge, hurdle that you had to get through on the recycling conversation? Like, every time you turn, there's somebody that was saying, this can't be done, or we're not going to do this and all that. But as you're unrelenting, as your book says. But it's important to get through because, I think sometimes when people see success, they don't understand some of the challenges that took you to get to that level of success. Share with me some of the challenges that you went through that deep down convinced you were doing the right thing.
So I managed to search around hard because nobody would take their video camera and their time and go do a documentary with me for free. That was the first hurdle, right? So I managed to, and I said, I'm going to keep going and keep going. So I bumped into this guy, Martin from Germany, was here, an exchange student. And he says, my film shoot ends Thursday. I'm not due to go back to Germany until Tuesday. He says, I tell you what I'll do. He says, if you be an extra in my film, I will come out and film these things with you on Friday and Saturday, edit it on Sunday. Monday we look at it and I'm gone. I said, Martin, you have a deal. We shook his hand. I was in his extra at the Marlborough Hotel. So long story short, he says, Don, let's do this. And I said, wow. I finished the documentary. We edited it. And now we have to make some disc of it. So Martin got me about 3 or 4 discs. I went out and I got some more copies. And now I said, let me go now and take this now to the media houses. In my book, there's a media house on St. Anne's Road. And I would approach them about it. They would take it, tell me thank, and bye-bye, here I go. I go the next day. And people were knowing that I was coming to talk about the recycling and the video that I presented to them. Instead, what happened is people met me at the glass door. We don't want to hear anything from you. We don't want anything from you. Don't come back here again. Or the next day I said, okay, no problems. So I would be like the Les Brown who showed up the next day and says, well, maybe you change your mind. Okay. So I showed up the following week and says, maybe I talked to somebody else, right? Somebody tell you no, it's not the end of the world. No does not mean everything ends. No just mean you have to work harder. So I didn't take it personal. I never take anything personal in this world because I am only one out of billions. How can I think that I must take anything personal? My grandfather would say. He said, you are less than a sand grain in the scope of life. How can you think that your views and your opinion is going to be greater than everybody else? All you have to do is to plant your seed, plant that seed and just water it and focus on it and make it grow. So I would get those obstacles. I go to another obstacle on same time on Osborne. And the guy would invite me in and push me out the back door. And he said, Don, aren't you people or Black people supposed to focus on other things? It took everything you need to answer him in another way, right? But hey, that's life, right? So you say, okay, not personal. Let's keep going, right? But Matt Condell, so after spending nearly 2 years of bugging everybody, sending emails, I would send Matt Condell an email once a week. Matt says, you know what? Sick and tired of putting you in the junk. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes and you're going to stop calling me and you're going to stop emailing me. I said, Matt, I'm in. I took his 5 minutes. Not until Matt gave me those 5 minutes, Matt recognized that it was more than me just trying to bug him. Matt catch it right away. He caught it. He goes, Don, this is brilliant. We have to do this. Right? And because he was the director of the station at the time, it was easy for him to make the decision. But other people could have done the same because I know them all. I know the Ace Burpees. I know all of them. I know them all. They know me. They have seen me all over the place. But to them, it wasn't as important issue because nobody cared about it. And I said to Matt, that's why we have to do it, because nobody cared about it. And Matt says, you're right. And the language started to change when I said, let's change the name from Garbage Day to Recycle Day. Let's change that. That's all part of that documentary that I handed off to people. Alan Sig from Shaw Cable. Alan saw the documentary and Alan says, Don, with your permission, I'm going to take this to my executive in Calgary and say if we would use this. And I said, man, use it as much as you can. That documentary became the starting point for Shaw Cable's community involvement. Did I plan that? No. Am I happy they did? Yes. But that's what planting a seed and making sure that you focus on your seed, even if you're in the driest parts of Winnipeg or Canada, you can still grow vegetable in the sun is as hot as it can be. You just need to think outside of the box. And so that's where that is.
And, just a kind of a note on Matt Kundle, who is a friend of both of ours. Matt has really got a real sense of community. I think he's one of these people who understands when somebody has a passion about something and he has the ability to enhance that passion, he steps up. So, delighted that you shared that story with Matt, because he's also been very, very good friend of mine and very supportive of this podcast through his now company Sound Off podcast. Don, this is a human rights podcast. Talk a little bit about what you see from your perspective, the issue of recycling, and it's not just about putting stuff into a blue box, but it's the issue around pollution and the issue of taking care of our water and our nature, of who we are as a world and a community. Put your human rights lens on and talk about why you think it's so important that we embrace that.
Just imagine a world whereas we have drinking water, which we get here from Winnipeg, from Shoal Lake First Nation. Just imagine a world where that becomes contaminated. Imagine a world where we have sewage leaking into the waterway worse than we have it currently in Winnipeg. And imagine everybody upstream was to have all their pig farming next door to our waterway. No matter how much we clean that water here in the city, you'll never get rid of the pesticide. You'll never get rid of some of the contaminants that's in the water. So imagine that kind of world, and imagine that world where that's the water we have to drink. Now, fast forward and imagine a world whereas it doesn't matter whether it's the Red River or it doesn't matter what kind of river. Imagine if we could go down to the Red River and fish and eat. Or we go down there and we choose to have a drink of water and we can just scoop up the water and drink. I've seen that world. I've seen that world in Jamaica. I know that world exists because in Jamaica, small little country with not a third of the resources that Canada or Winnipeg have. We have that world. Whereas you could go down to a stream, believe it or not, and you don't have to think twice about drinking the water. That world exists in Jamaica, where I'm from. So I come here and I said, with all of the water we have, how do you get people to understand the value and importance of it as it relates to human rights? Because we have the right to clean air and clean water. So if we have the right to clean water, let's try and protect it. And that's why Dr. David Suzuki, when I said protecting our waterway, would be the first thing, if I was prime minister, what I would do. If you don't show me a plan to protect the waterway, I'm not giving you no equalization payment, or I'm going to use the equalization payment to protect the waterway. If the federal government is listening right now, we have a sewage treatment problem here in the city. And the problem we have is that we're being gouged by the developers, in my view. This is my opinion, not pointing blame on anybody. It's taking too long to build, which then cost overrun. Way too much money. Something that started at 800 million is 1.8 billion or whatever the cost is, and growing. We should have finished that already long ago, and so that we can start to maintain it. The fact that it's taking so long is worrisome because all we're doing is spending more and more and more and more money. The federal government should cut off all equalization payment, direct that money to finish the sewage treatment plant so we don't flush our sewage into the treatment. That's a human right, to make sure that our waterway is clear. On the subject of garbage itself in our street, healthy minds create healthy environment. Healthy environment create healthy minds. How can we talk about a city or a country without first looking at how we consider or how we treat our trash? Because trash is not trash. Because in some countries, Japan is a perfect example. If you look at Australia, look at Japan and some of these countries, they know how to handle these things. And they have done a far better job of us. They're thinking the right way. We're not thinking the right way because it's easy for us. Too easy to just toss it. And so as a result of that, we don't think, is there anything we could reuse this for? That's why the reusable bag became such a big thing for me when I started and trying to look at, and thanks to Sobeys, when I approached everybody to join me, if it wasn't for Deborah Green of Polo Park at the time, was prepared to step out of the mainframe, think outside the box with me, we wouldn't have all the major malls and grocery store using reusable bags today. Because why is that important? Plastic into our waterway, petroleum into our waterway, it doesn't go away. It's not something that is going to disappear in a year or two. Plastic sometimes can take up to 50 years before it decomposes or disintegrates back into its natural form. And then where does it go into the natural form? Back into our waterway. Fishes are consuming this. So we're literally eating plastic and we don't even know, because the microplastic is being digested by the fish and we're eating the fish and we think it's okay. We have a good meal. It's in our stomach. And all kind of side effects, health condition, which comes back to, wait a minute, this trash thing is actually a human right thing, because we have a right to our government, the people around us, me and you, Stuart. We have a right to see what we can do to make sure, if nothing else, that we protect what we have here to offer that human right to every single individual for clean water, clean air, clean fish, healthy fish, making sure that that's there. Because if it's not there, what's the flip side to that? Our waterway isn't clean. We start getting too much contaminants in it. The city of Winnipeg leaching sewage into the waterway because they don't have the proper storage facility. All of this thing is a cycle. And I love the indigenous community model of Mother Earth. The only thing I would ask them to do, take the lead. Take the lead. And this is why the book is written. Take this lead, and you, with the cycle of life as it is with Mother Earth that speaks to your language, to my indigenous brothers and sisters, you know this culture more than I do. You can appreciate what I'm saying even more than I can. Don't let me come here from Jamaica and try and tell you how to clean up your backyard. No, you shouldn't be telling me. You should be showing me. But instead, we are busy focusing on other things and we leave the basic essentials alone. And that's why I thought, you know what, maybe this is what I was here for. Just to wake the consciousness of the people to go, wait a minute, we're not looking at this right. And thanks to Matt and thanks to a few other media houses that came out and support me, Shaw, Alan Seed, Deborah Green from Polo Park. I mean, if these people didn't step out, Sobeys for stepping out with me and coming with the reusable bag, if these people didn't see it and step out with me, I wouldn't be standing here today.
One of the things I wondered, you talk about being unrelenting in terms of your passion. I mean, not everybody understands what it takes to get a book written and published. How was that?
This book is 2 years in the making. Okay. You write, you rewrite, you come up with something, you add it. No, that doesn't go there. It's, oh my God. Thanks to my poor wife. If it wasn't for her, this thing would happen, because you need to find somebody in your life. And I know it's a difficult thing to do, because, and I tell you why I say to everybody it's difficult. Les Brown, what's his name, Williams, that has the TV show. These people's parents may or may not have supported them. And then even sometimes your own family member, friend, lover, sweetheart, partner, mother, father, will tell you that what you're doing isn't right. What you're doing it won't get you anywhere. That doesn't mean you're to stop. That doesn't mean they are right. They could be acting upon their own insecurities and fears. So you have to be so focused and committed that when you do find that one partner in the form of my dear wife who understood that I am going to keep going and her role is just to support me as much as she can. So when the times are great, she's there smiling. In some of the pictures with my reusable bag day, my wife is there with me. In some of the pictures that I go out to these events, you'll see her with me. But the days when it gets real rough, and believe me, it will, you are going to question your very existence, okay? When those days get real rough, you need to have somebody in your corner that is going to believe in you. It doesn't mean it has to be your wife, your lover, your sweetheart, your partner. When you find that individual, hold on to that individual and encourage that individual with you, because those are the people that you're going to need and to lean on. Apart from your God, whatever you deem God to be, you're not trying to tell you what you should see as God. But whatever it is that you see God is, you need to hold on to that, because the days are going to get rough, and the days will get rough before it gets to this book that says, hey, this is, oh, I'm finally there. Many, many nights of going back and forth. You are going to have days when you question whether or not should I write the book? Who would care about the book? I remember one guy who is elected, still is. He looked at me square in the eye and spit on the ground and says, do you honestly think anybody would take people like you serious? This book tells him, yes, they will. Okay. When I look and see all the major malls across Canada, never mind Winnipeg, Manitoba, all across Canada, reusing reusable bag. I'm saying to that guy, yes, they will.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And by the way, Don, you mentioned your wife. Her name is Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah, I met her. Yeah, she's a great partner for you. You're very fortunate. Don, a couple of things before we put a bow on this conversation. You were very, I think, wise to use Caribbean and African music in the audiobook. I love it. But what got you thinking, I got to put this into the audiobook?
So, again, I don't want to be the same old, same old. I look different and I'm okay with it. I speak different and I'm very okay with it. My hair is different and I'm okay with it. My eyes are different. That's okay. I embrace my difference and I enjoy my difference. So when I started my company, Jamrock Security, it's different. It's not just another security company. No, no, no. And as a result of that, we're top of the leaderboard. When I started to write this book, I said, I got to do something about this that's going to be different. And what is it going to be different more than sticking to what I core believe? If you finish an audiobook and you just finish it just because, I said, what about music? I've never heard or seen, and I did some research on it. I've never heard or seen music in the book that is inspired by the book at the end of the book. And I go, I've heard music in it. I heard audio books that have music throughout. You play a little bit of music or the interlude or whatever. But to have music dedicated to the vibes, the energy, the emotion that speaks to this, I said, I'm going to set out to try and make that happen. And when I did, it was like magic. I'm like, whoa, this is something else. So for those of us who haven't seen it, check out the audiobook and the music. You love it.
Yeah, no, Don, for sure. It was fantastic. Don Woodstock, I had the pleasure to interview you when it wasn't me, it was Trixie maybe, but person that was very helpful in helping me with this podcast when you're running for mayor. And you had some thoughts about that. Will you run for mayor again?
Absolutely. The only time I am stopped running for mayor is when I have been elected mayor. So I am you'll see my name again and again and again and again. Or the establishment can do the right thing. Get out of the way, start working for the people, make this city a hub for business. 33% of the population live off welfare. Another 30% gets a government job or government check somewhere. I want to make the flip side of that. We're in the middle of Canada, the center of Canada. The first electric bus that was built in this city was because of my efforts, which is in the book. We are right here is New Flyers Industry. New Flyer Industry is the world leader for electrification of buses. And yet still I was driving, the bus drivers, because I worked for City at the time, they're driving diesel bus. And I'm going, this is crazy. Right here in our backyard. Manitoba Hydro produces the world's finest, cleanest electricity and the cheapest right here. So we have hydro, we have New Flyer Industry. Our working population per capita income is very low compared to other cities. Our wage gap here. And then because we have land costs, the second lowest in Canada, Why then don't we have large industries coming here to employ the people that sitting on welfare? For example, I used to volunteer for REASE, Reaching Equality Employment Services. They found work for people with disability. And I'm not talking people with disability that have a pinky or, oh, my shoulder's hurting me. At the time when I was on the board of REASE volunteering, we had a 98% success rate. 98% of the people who came in for work found work. So if you're listening and you know somebody sitting on welfare, the politicians are to be blamed for that. They didn't find enough work for you to make sure that you can go to work. So as a result of that, you feel comfortable to say you're getting a welfare check.
Okay, Don. So listen, we'll use another podcast for you to launch your Mayoralty campaign, but you're passionate, and I love that. And I asked the question, and you answered it. Don, my final question to you, and again, I want to thank you so much for finding time to do this Humans on Right podcast with me. You're a great guest. You've done great things. You're going to continue to do great things, clearly. But if there was one takeaway that you wanted somebody who's listening to this to take away from your book, Unrelenting, if there was one takeaway, what would that be?
Don't give up on your dream, no matter how difficult or who tells you it cannot be done. Just imagine this. Imagine, what if everything that you're taught as impossible is actually possible? I challenge you. I dare you. Tell me something that is impossible. Go ahead. Go ahead and tell me. Email me. Send me something that's impossible. And I guarantee you it is possible. Not because we don't see it here. That's the problem. Look outside the box. Close off your imagination from everything you have seen and have learned up till now. Step outside of that for 1 minute and ask the question, what if everything that they tell you, the authorities tell me that this wouldn't done because nobody would get rid of those big ugly bins in the back lane. And it's in my documentary that I said, no, we got to get rid of these. And they said, no, we'll never get rid of them because it's easy. Today, you have to search hard to find a big ugly bin in the back lane, right? My point is, don't believe everything that you're taught as impossible. Think of it as, whoa, I was not taught that it is possible. And if you have that in your mind, you will succeed at anything you're doing, providing you are not looking for instant gratification, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing. A baby doesn't born and in the first week it becomes an adult. It's not possible, right? So why do you expect that whatever you do, you're going to instantly get gratification and you become a grown man? If that was possible, we'd be in trouble.
Don Woodstock, author of Unrelenting, grassroots activist. You are a community leader. You've done some great things in Winnipeg and in your life. And I'm just delighted to have had an opportunity to put you on our Humans on Right podcast to share it. So Don, continued success. And thank you so much for finding time for this podcast.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I got to give a big shout out to Matt. Thanks, Matt, for connecting us.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, Matt Kundle. Yeah, he's a wonderful, also a strong believer in connection, community, and podcasts. So thanks to Matt Kundle. Thanks, Don.
Thanks again, Stuart, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Humans on Rights. A transcript of this episode is available by clicking the link in the show notes of this episode. Humans on Rights is recorded and hosted by Stuart Murray. Social media marketing by Buffy Davey. Music by Doug Edmond. For more, go to humanrightshub.ca.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.